G'day and welcome to the Grow a Small Business Podcast. I'm your host, Troy Truen. Each week, we speak with an owner who has grown a business with 5 to 30 team members to something bigger. Diving into their numbers and unearthing the pain they've experienced, we explore what they did to overcome each barrier and what they would do differently from day one. Let's get into it. Welcome, everyone. Today I'm interviewing Gordon Van Wechel from the Alchemy Consulting Group. He's based near Virginia Beach in the United States of America. Thanks for your time today, Gordon.
Great to be with you, Troy. Looking forward to our conversation.
Let's start with how we know each other. I think we connected, was it through LinkedIn?
That's probably it. One of the people on my team is reaching out to some leading podcasters just to try to book me because I enjoy these conversations. So it could have been through Kristen's efforts as well.
I think it was, yeah. No, great. Tell our audience a bit about your business, what it does and how it makes money.
My current business is the Alchemy Consulting Group. We're an advertising agency. About 75-80% of what we do is digital advertising and then some traditional offline things as well. We make money by offering our products to clients in a variety of niches and putting them on a retainer and servicing the heck out of them over time.
How did you start out?
I started this business in 2003. I had sold my previous company in 2001 and was looking around for something to do. And I realized that there were a lot of small businesses, even startups, but really a lot of small local businesses that needed ad agency style support to help them grow, but they couldn't stroke that $12,000 or $15,000 check every month to a big agency. So I felt there was a space in the market for somebody that had a lot of marketing and business growth experience to build an agency that focused on helping those smaller companies. So the majority of our business over the years has been companies in that $500,000 to $5 million range. You know, we'll occasionally work with a bigger company, but most of our business falls into that range. So we're dealing with a lot of local and small regional companies.
That's great. And I'm assuming over the 19 years since Alchemy's been going, that mix of, you said a minute ago, 75% digital, 25% traditional. I'm guessing it probably even started the other way around, or a lot more.
Great insight. Yeah, when we started the company, we were doing things like setting up phone rooms and calling people at home. Well, that's illegal now. We were doing fax blasting. Oops, that's illegal now. So, you know, you got to remember in 2003, YouTube wasn't in business. Google was around, but nobody really knew what it was yet.
I think it was only 5 years old.
At all, it was dial-up.
Yeah. I still remember that dial tone. Yeah. I think Google was only 5 years old around then, and Facebook wasn't even
wasn't around.
No. Yeah. So a lot would have changed, and you'd be well positioned to comment on that, moving from traditional to now. Obviously, what's clearly very powerful is the digital marketing. It's very measurable, very scalable.
Yeah, we started making the transition late 2006, started building websites. SEO in those days was a piece of cake.
Yep.
But yeah, so I like to think that we've grown up with the internet.
Yep. Yeah, great.
It really did change our business.
And maybe go right back. So when did you start your first business? What business was it, and how old were you then?
My very first business was a restaurant company. I was 26 when we started that business. Did the usual route of going to college, going to grad school, taking a corporate job, and 2.5, 3 years later, they fired me. I just couldn't keep my mouth shut.
Yep. Sounds like you were an entrepreneur born and bred then.
So, you know, I realized there wasn't a great fit with me in a cubicle over time.
Yep.
Would never be able to get a government job, but I met a couple of guys who were starting a restaurant chain or a restaurant company, and we wound up building 16 restaurants over a 7-state area for the next few years. We had 6 more under construction when we sold that company.
So was that to operate the restaurants or to lease them out?
No, we ran them. We operated them ourselves. We had 1,800 employees in that company.
Holy shit.
Yeah, the lesson from that business, Troy, is rapid growth isn't always the answer.
Yep.
We were so heavily leveraged and we were young. You're in your 20s, 30s. The oldest guy on our team was in his late 40s.
Yeah.
You've got energy to burn. It's a fun business, but we were too aggressive in our growth. Thinking back on it,
Yeah.
when we did sell, we wound up, I think, paying a real discount over the value of the company because we were able to get out from under all the debt and our personal guarantees.
Yeah.
And so we took it.
That's a big heavy weight. And what year did you start that when you were age 26?
That was in 1978.
Yep. Right. And how long? And so is that the one you sold in 2001?
No, that was, we sold that 84, 85. One of my partners from that business called me, and he had found a little software company. He calls me, he says, I think we ought to buy this software company. I said, Tom, you and I don't know crap about software. What are you thinking about? He goes, yeah, but they don't know crap about marketing. So let's buy it.
Yep.
So we bought this software company, and our way of growing that company was by building a dealer network. Back in the early and mid 80s, the computer business was the wild, wild west. I can remember going to the big Comdex show in Houston, and there were over 200 hardware vendors there that were selling boxes. Everything was running on primitive operating systems. Apple didn't really have an entry into the marketplace at that time. They were about to, but so that was so growing that business through setting up a dealer network was the way we decided to go. And again, we built a network of 90 some dealers across the country. And then one of the big computer companies came in and bought us because they wanted some of our proprietary software. We had developed some really cool programs early on, and that's what they were looking for.
Yep. Right. And so, what year was that sale, and how many team members were you at then?
How many team members?
Yeah.
We had a tech staff of 6 people. Myself and 2 other guys handled the marketing. We had the money guy that put up the startup capital for the company. He had been in the used car business. And then a couple of support people working the front desk, that kind of thing.
Yeah, so 10 or 12.
Relatively small company.
Yep. And what year did you sell out?
We sold that company 89, 90.
Yep. And then and then you started the business that you sold in 2001?
Well, there were a couple of years there where I got a little arrogant and thought that I'd had these 2 successes. I can probably do anything. And so started some businesses that I quickly realized were way out of my scope of experience or expertise.
Yep.
And when I decided to stop throwing money into them, I got out and went back to things that I knew.
Yep. I love that saying, success is a poor teacher. I said that to a friend that I was mentoring some years ago. He just sold out for 10 million after starting 2.5 years earlier, when I said I didn't think the business was going to work, but I'm happy to have a beer once a month and tell you all the mistakes I've made and give you my 2 cents. He was episode 5, actually, of the podcast, Tim Palmier from Flat Tummy Tea. So, but after he sold that, I said that saying to him that success is a poor teacher, because he was jumping into the next thing. I said, just be careful having, hubris, being overbearing pride or arrogance around you've hit it out of the park, but that is a unicorn. Like, it's a very rare thing.
Yes. Yep. So yeah, there were a couple of years there where I was trying some things. Then I had a friend who was in the real estate and mortgage business, and he said, well, why don't you come study the mortgage business with me? And I found I really liked that business. I liked the numbers, liked doing commercial paper, liked doing the residential paper. So I spent 1.5 years with him, and then went out and started my own mortgage company. And I like to say that I'm brighter than average, but the reality is that's another one of those instances where I just happened to catch the tide as it was rising.
Yep.
I started working the subprime market very early, when there was not a secondary market in the United States. I was living in Denver at the time. That's where I started my company. Eventually, we were in 38 states. But I met a guy at the Texas mortgage show. He was having the same issues I was. Where do we sell our subprime paper? So we started putting blocks of loans together and selling with the Japanese, who were paying the stupid prices for blocks of American loans because they were backed by American real estate. And they figured, we don't care if they default, it's American real estate.
Yep.
So that was really like printing money. It was a great business. We grew that business to like 7 million in revenue in 3.5 years.
Right.
It was a great business.
And good time to get out, 2001, obviously, with the GFC,
Yeah.
5-6 years later.
Yeah, we missed a couple of refinance markets, but you can't time the market. We got out at a good time, and made some nice profit on that business.
And it was the late 90s, wasn't it? The Japanese economy kind of imploded. Were you guys impacted by that much?
By that time, there was a secondary market in the United States. And again, we found some of the big A-level lenders chasing the subprime market and not understanding it at all.
Yeah.
They were applying the metrics that their usual A paper resales were based on to subprime paper, and the numbers were really very different. They didn't realize that. And it actually, some of the big national lenders here in the US went out of business because they overinvested in subprime that they didn't understand.
Yep, right.
It was a crazy market, but we knew our niches really well and profited nicely.
Great. And now let's just talk about Alchemy for a moment. Do you have some key numbers that illustrate the growth of that business over the last 19 years? Number of team members you started with to where you're at now, perhaps?
Team members I started with was basically myself and somebody to answer the phones in an executive suite. Honestly, I started the mortgage company that same way. Just started in an executive suite. Let's see what happens with this business. One of the things I've learned is there's no sense investing in a whole lot of infrastructure until you know that there's a market there and that you can access it consistently.
Yeah.
So with Alchemy, honestly, I didn't want to be big again. I didn't want to be in 38 states. I didn't want 1,800 employees. I didn't want a lot of infrastructure and built-in overhead. And particularly when we started making the transition to digital, it's very easy to leverage the digital marketing space.
Yeah.
With a couple of pieces of software, you can handle a lot of business. We now have a team of 11, and we're in different parts of the world. That's another interesting thing about how flat the world has become.
Yeah.
My operations director is up in Toronto. I'm in the US. I've got a sales team in 2 other cities here in the US, plus our main office here in Virginia. I've got a manager for one of our departments lives in India. I have our top designer is in Nigeria, of all places.
Yeah.
So, the world's flat, Troy. We can communicate on Skype, and
yeah, it's great.
We just have no issues.
And you went with that remote model of, getting the best talent from, doesn't matter where they're in the world, really, before COVID hit, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah. I've been international really since about 2010.
Yep. Yeah, great. No, I've got 3 team members in the Philippines and 1 in Pakistan, and they're great. Yeah, it's really good.
You have to filter through, in my experience, you have to filter through a lot of people, particularly in the Philippines. We've had some experiences with people whose resumes don't exactly line up with what their skill set is.
Yep.
But that's the same problem I have here in the States.
Exactly.
So I think that's universal.
Yeah.
But once you do find somebody that's doing the work well and fits in with the team, man, it's just great.
Any other key numbers illustrate the growth of Alchemy over the last 19 years?
We're still small. We'll do probably 600,000 this year.
Yep.
But again, it's a highly profitable business.
Yeah. No, that's great. And I'm, some of the businesses I've grown and managed around that 30 to 40 team member mark, and I don't really want to go back to that size. It's a really good sweet spot, around the 10 team members, I think.
Yeah, it's easy to manage. I can actually take a Sunday off and not be guilty, and
Yeah. Well, great, Gordon. I think you've got a tremendous business experience, so I'm really looking forward to the next few questions. So, as we discussed before we hit record, dive into any of those businesses when answering these questions. I'm really the audience be really keen to hear. When was the moment you felt like you had succeeded?
I don't know that I've ever felt that level of comfort, Troy. you sell a business, and then the anxiety is, okay, what am I going to do next? And even today, with money in the bank and a nice block of clients and a strong team, I guess by some definitions that's success. But I'm still trying to make sure we're doing everything right. I still want to make sure when we take on a new client that we onboard them correctly, that we manage expectations, that the team does what they're supposed to.
Yeah.
I don't know that I've ever reached that point where I say, gosh, Gordon, you've really been successful.
Yep.
That's probably my own mental problem.
Yeah. It's quite common. We just want to keep going and onto the next thing, onto the next thing. What does success look like to you?
That's a target that's moved over the years. Today, what it looks like to me is trying to get that work-life balance that eluded me for a long time when I was younger.
Yeah.
I have an opportunity to travel a lot through some of the NGO work that I've done over the years. But I like to travel, for pleasure as well. I regret that I missed too many of my kids' soccer games when they were playing.
Yep.
So for me now, it's work-life balance. And again, that's another reason why I've stayed small, Troy. I can do that more easily. If I'm managing in offices in, multiple states and people all over, it's more difficult.
Yeah. Number one thing you'd recommend to marketing a fast-growing business?
You mean in terms of a marketing tool, or?
Yeah, I guess the main thing you'd say to someone when it comes to marketing a fast-growing business, what should they focus on, or maybe a tool?
Based on our experience with numerous clients in a wide variety of niches, it's understand who your customer is. Who is your ideal customer? Particularly for a smaller company, you don't have Budweiser's ad budget. You can't go after everybody.
Yep.
Even though there's a lot of people that could use your product or service, really identify that most obvious, most likely buyer, and focus your marketing spend, focus everything that you're doing on building with that niche of buyer. And then you can move to the next niche when you feel like you really understand that.
Yeah.
All too often people get into business and they're pinballing everywhere. I mean, everybody can use my product. I'm going to go talk to these guys. I'm going to talk to those guys. Dan Kennedy said it best years ago, the riches are in the niches.
Yep.
So if you can identify your niche client, do everything you can to go after them, and you'll be a lot more profitable.
Yep. Yeah, I certainly made that mistake early on in business 22 years ago, just trying to go after everyone in our market. So yeah, learned the hard way. And funding your business, or your businesses, basically, I guess you've looked at use a lot of the different sources. So investors, bank finance, obviously cash flow as well.
Mostly cash flow. The restaurant business, we had a successful restaurateur that provided some basic capital for us to get started. We would have construction loans where we took over a restaurant that we needed to remodel. One of the ways we grew that business so quickly is we would take restaurants that were in trouble, but we felt the demographics were there for our concept, and we would go in and remodel and convert to what we were doing. The very first restaurant we opened, that was the model we used. Kind of a funny story, if you'll let me digress for a minute. Yeah, we had a construction loan, and we were working really fast to get things going. And we got a call from our banker on a Wednesday that said, hey, your contractor is here with some invoices and your line is tapped. I'm going to cover these, but you need to bring me money by Friday because we're going to pull your line. Well, we didn't have the restaurant finished. We had most of the kitchen done. We didn't even have the toilets installed in the men's room at that point. So we got this brilliant idea. We'd been training the staff, and we had told the staff, every one of you invite a half a dozen of your friends. We're going to open the bar. We're going to have a bar tonight. It's a cash bar, but we want you all to come in and see the new restaurant. So we literally had guys outside peeing in the bushes. We kept all the outside lights off. But we sat there till 4 a.m, letting our staff and all their friends drink at discount prices. But we raised enough money to take over to the bank the next day, and he said, "Okay, let me extend you for another 2 weeks."
Oh, that's a great story.
And we got the thing open. So,
Yep.
I don't know that we could do that today with all of the inspectors and everything
No.
else that's going on. But
Yeah.
But so we had a money guy that started that. The computer business, again, we had the guy that was from the used car background who put up the seed capital for that. And, he had an office in our building, but was rarely there. And when he was there, he didn't understand what we were doing anyway.
Yeah.
The mortgage business I funded internally, Alchemy I funded myself.
Yep. Yeah.
So I've never had to really go out into the capital markets.
Yep. And out of interest, the restaurants, were they all the one same brand and style of food, or different in different
Yes.
areas? Yeah.
No, they were all the same. We had, and that's what made it unique and desirable for one of the big national companies to buy us, is we had proprietary spices, we had bakeries in the stores. If you were to relate our concept from those days to a restaurant chain today, the closest would be Panera.
Right. Mm-hmm.
We had a lot of healthy food and that was all produced in-house from scratch at a time when that was not common.
Yep. If you were to start up today with plenty of funding, would you go into your industry that Alchemy's in now?
No, not because I don't think there's a lot of opportunity in the industry, but one, this business doesn't need a lot of seed capital to start with, but two, over the last 5 to 8 years, there's been an explosion of agencies in my business, and part of it is because there's no barrier to entry.
Yeah.
You don't need any licensing. It doesn't cost much to get in. You can literally go to a seminar over the weekend and hang your shingle on Monday and say you're an expert. And, the public doesn't know any different.
Yeah.
You can fool a lot of people for a long time until they finally figure out that, you really don't know how to get them on the first page of Google, or you don't know how to get them a good reputation. But, that lack of barrier to entry, I would not go into this business today.
Yep. Right. Can you outline the most stressful point in your small business growth journey so our audience can learn from it? It's been 45 years you've been in business?
Close to it.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's not talk about that number. That makes me feel.
So there must be one.
There are times like the restaurant experience I just described. There have been times where clients don't pay on time. I've gone to bed on Wednesday night knowing I had a payroll due on Friday and not sure how I was going to cover it. Those produce a lot of angst.
Yeah.
We've had in the mortgage business one time, I had a federal agency come after me because they said I had not handled the HUD-1 financial disclosures correctly, and that we were profiting on appraisals, which is not legal, and we weren't doing it. But I spent close to $20,000, both on attorney's fees and all of our internal expense to pull, 2,000 mortgage files at random and prove to them that we were not doing what they said we were doing.
Yep. Yeah.
And finally they said, gosh, they told my attorney, we can't just close this case because we've spent so much money on it. Pick 100 clients and send them a $50 refund, and we'll call the whole thing square.
Oh.
And I said to my attorney, this is blood money. He just says, shut up and write the checks. But those kinds of things just hack you off.
Yeah, absolutely. What area in business do you feel you've had to work on the most to add the greatest value?
You mean me work on personally?
Yeah. Yep.
I tend to be pretty much your type A driver personality, as a lot of entrepreneurs are.
Yep.
And so sometimes that makes me more short with people than I would like to have been, less patient with people who don't make decisions as quickly or who don't learn as quickly as I would like them to.
Sounds like you're describing me at the start of my business career.
Well, I think a lot of us go through that. I was fortunate. I had a mentor early on who pulled me aside and he says, look, you need to stop being an asshole.
Yeah.
You need to stop assuming that if somebody can't help you immediately, you throw them aside. You never know when someone's going to be of value to you in the future, or when you might need them or be able to bring value to them in the future. And there's nothing like creating that subconscious feeling of debt on the part of somebody who may want to help you in the future. So just be patient, let people learn, respect everybody was really his bottom line message. And, that's one that has stuck with me. And I think that really helped me as I built my future businesses after that time. Do a better job with people. Do a better job as a networker, building those relationships over time.
What have you enjoyed the least about managing fast growth?
Dealing with staff issues. It's hard to find good people. I mean, there's a lot of complaints here in the States about that now because of COVID, and so many people have gotten excited about working at home and they don't want to go back to work.
Yeah.
But I can tell you 30 years ago, it was a problem. Finding people who actually can do what they said they could do, who show up on time, who take care of business. When you find them, you do everything you can to hang on to them. But it's just a constant sifting and sorting process, particularly as you're building a larger enterprise. We had people in 38 states in the mortgage company. That means I'm not seeing them regularly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can only see the reports that are coming in. So, finding the right person, keeping them there, knowing they were actually still working for me and not taking business that I had paid the marketing to generate to somebody else for an extra quarter point.
Yeah.
Those kinds of things.
What do you love most about growing a small business?
Oh, it's just exciting. It's so freaking energizing.
Hmm.
When you're starting a business, you wear all the hats. And you don't want to do that forever. But at the beginning, you personally touching every aspect of the business and being involved in all of those decisions, that was just very energizing to me. Even the bad businesses, even the failures, I'm touching every part of it and quickly coming to the realization that I'd missed the market. But still, there's that energizing feeling that, gosh, we're starting something new.
Yeah. What has been the biggest mindset shift for you in your small business growth journey?
A couple of things. One I just alluded to, just respecting people more, realizing that growth for growth's sake isn't always the best way to go. Realizing that it's really okay for me to make a fair and reasonable profit on every piece of business.
Yep.
When people try to nickel dime you just hold your ground. Here's what we do it well, it's going to bring value to you. And if you want to go find somebody cheaper, I'm sure you'll be able to do so. And feeling good about walking away from that business.
Yep.
My experience has been in a couple of businesses now, certainly in this one, that, the people that pay the least take the most time and cause you the most headaches.
Yes.
So, make sure that your pricing is market driven, that your value is there for what you're charging, but then don't be afraid to charge it, and don't be afraid to walk away if somebody doesn't want to pay it.
What is the number one habit you think a small business owner needs to develop and maintain?
Take care of yourself outside of the business. Being an entrepreneur is really draining. It's draining mentally, it's draining physically. Even in the heat of our biggest, most tumultuous times, I had to get out of the office and go take a run, 5 days a week. I get to the gym now 3-4 days a week. You've got to take care of yourself. In a lot of businesses where you're doing a lot of client entertaining, it's easy to eat too much garbage food in restaurants and drink too much.
Yep.
And you just can't do that consistently. So take care of yourself outside of the business, outside of the day-to-day crush of the business. And I think you'll do a lot better in your business.
Totally agree. Want to become the best manager you can be? Check out our Kick-Ass Manager course at growasmallbusiness.com. Do the course and add your fellow managers for no extra cost. Join the 30%. 70% of people quit their job because of their manager. Perfect question for you. You've had businesses overall. You've had thousands of team members. Can you talk to how you've added people to the team, some wins, mistakes, and advice for those listening?
One of the best ways I've added people is a referral from a valued employee that already understands our business, understands our culture, knows how to work with me or with my managers. Those people have tended to stick long term. I've gone through a process where somebody applies, and you can do this through Indeed, and there's some software programs that allow you to attach to the Indeed platform, where you can take a person through a 2 or 3 or 4 step process where they're asking questions and vetting themselves at each step. I've used that successfully. One example, I was looking for a salesperson for the Rocky Mountain region here in the US. I had 180 people put their resumes in. By the time everybody went through that process, it filtered down to 8 people that I actually interviewed.
Wow.
And made 3 offers. So that kind of process saves a lot of time if you're growing a larger enterprise.
And for the audience, Indeed.com is the world's biggest job board. So here in Australia, Seek is the main one. But yeah, someone told me that last year. I was surprised, but it's huge.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, they're advertising on television now. They've gobbled up a couple of their competitors in the last few years. So they have grown by acquisition, but they now are really huge.
Yep.
Some of our clients use them. I have one client in the landscaping business, and he goes to Indeed to find guys to work on lawn crews.
Right.
So,
yeah. What are some things you recommend to building a sustainable and kick-ass culture to help with the growth?
You need to understand what your core values are as a company and constantly be reinforcing that. I mean, you're talking about those things in employment interviews. If you have team meetings every couple of weeks or every month or however frequently you have them, you need to highlight one of those core values and not just you speak it, but have your team tell you what that means. To really reinforce that, focus on training and development. A lot of times as business owners, we're in a hurry and we say, well, go work with Susie, she'll teach you your job. Really bad mistake. Because, one, Susie's not trained to be a trainer, and 2, she's going to teach the new employee all the shortcuts.
Yep.
So really focus on training and development and make sure you've got a system in place to onboard employees correctly. And then listen to your team. People that are out on the front lines, people that are that are client facing, you need to listen to what they have to say.
Yeah, that onboarding and training is a really important point. I had Chris Ronzio from Trainual on episode 168. Excuse me, on episode 168. I'm not sure if you've used that product, Trainual.
No, I haven't.
It's Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myths.
Yeah.
I assume he's a shareholder, but he's definitely an advocate for that product. They're growing like nothing else. It's just huge. So that helps, particularly small businesses, put all your operations manual in there, your training manual, and get your new team members to go through that onboarding process. And there's a whole lot of other things.
Yeah, we've done that just using our Google Drive.
Yeah.
So we've got all of our systems and procedures documented.
Yeah.
That's organized by the different teams and what people are going to be doing. So yeah, we've done the same thing. We've just used the Google Drive.
Yeah, and I do that in a couple of businesses as well until they grow up a bit more, and then we look for a system like Trainual. But it's a really important point. I think a lot of business owners miss that training and development of your team members. Pays often on HR surveys the 5th reason why someone works somewhere. So it's alignment to mission and purpose and values. It's being treated well and trusted by their manager, but also being developed in their roles. They value that more than pay. So
yeah, and being able to see a career path if that's what they're interested in.
Yeah. Tell our audience how you've handled balance.
Well, badly for a long time.
Me too. Yeah.
Yeah. When I was young and single, I didn't mind working 80 hours a week, which was kind of the schedule in the restaurant business. But, as I grew up, I wanted to spend more time with family. As I said earlier, I missed too many of my kids' soccer games. But right now, I think I'm at a good point in terms of balancing things and have been with this company, intentionally so. There's something about starting a business, when you're 50 it's different than when you're 25.
Yeah.
From the beginning, I wanted to make sure there was some of that balance there.
Yeah.
So I exercise. I do definitely take time off. I'll travel without my laptop. I have my phone, but I'll travel without my laptop. I do have I have a hobby. I do bonsai. I've been doing bonsai for 30 years now. So I actually teach classes, and I have a pretty extensive collection of my own that requires a lot of work. So
Wow.
for me, there's kind of a Zen experience where you're just sitting in the yard working on a tree, because you're literally creating a living sculpture.
Yep.
That will probably outlive me.
Wow.
And so you're evaluating what's the tree going to give me? What can I do? Does my vision sync with what the tree is going to be able to do with me as I try to create this and develop it? So it's a living sculpture, so it changes. I might set something up today, but 2 years from now, that tree will have continued to grow. And so you're constantly coming back and working with the trees. It's an interesting experience.
I'm assuming
it's a great way to relax.
So did you get into that in the mid 90s with the mortgage business? Were you in Japan is that how you?
No, I actually got into that when I was living in Denver. Every Father's Day, the Denver Bonsai Society had a show at the Botanical Gardens. That was the only day of the year that my wife and kids let me do what I wanted. I dragged them to the Botanical Gardens every year.
Yep.
So one year for my birthday, my wife bought me a tree and a bonsai pot and some bonsai tools. And, I promptly killed that tree, but,
I've got a brown thumb as well.
The bug was there.
Yeah, great. How much professional development have you invested in yourself?
Oh, it's constant. Even today, it's ongoing. I make sure I read a minimum of 2 business books a month. Now, with online seminars and webinars being what they are, it's pretty easy to pick and choose things that I think will be helpful. But even at the start of my career, I was going to weekend seminars. A lot of them focused on investing, but reading a lot of books. In those days, we were listening to cassette tapes.
Yeah.
For the mortgage company, I created a library of cassettes and books and had it in the office, and it was available for any of our team members to check out. I think personal development is something that a lot of people don't do enough of. A lot of employees think, oh, I'm just working here. I don't need to work on that stuff. I'll just get another job. But, I've always tried to instill in them that, whether you spend the rest of your life working with me or go do something different, I want you to walk away from our time together really feeling like you've been blessed with more than just a paycheck.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned you had a mentor before. Any other comments on mentors or coaches you've had over the decades?
I haven't personally retained coaches per se, but I have frequently belonged to mastermind groups of other business owners. I belong to 2 today. And I find that synergy between business owners, even if you're competing but in different locations, still that sharing of ideas and the ability to extract ideas from other businesses. That's really been helpful for me, just to synthesize the various thoughts. And then there's a synergy with business owners when you get together and, you're committed to helping each other. It's not a competition thing. You're just committed to sharing ideas and seeing what you can learn from each other.
Yeah, that's right. It's one of my favorite things. I did a little bit of it in Melbourne, but more so in London 12 years ago. I was over there for about 4 years, but for the last year and a half here in Hobart, we've been running a monthly meetup for business owners the last Wednesday of the month at the second largest craft brewery here in Tasmania that I chair the board of. And we get 30 to 40 business owners along. Someone talks for 20 minutes on a topic, and it's just great having a chat over a beer or a wine.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, just those check-ins and build relationships. And a group that size, some of those people are going to come together and do a business together.
Yeah, exactly. It's just then helping other business owners out when they hit a HR problem or a legal problem. It just falls out of conversation. I really enjoy that.
Yep.
Do you have a board of directors or advisors for Alchemy?
Not with this company. I do have some advisors, some good friends whose judgment I trust. In fact, I met with one of them this morning. So yeah, I reciprocate. I'm helping them with their businesses. So it's not really a formal mastermind as much as we really share at a pretty deep level what's going on in our companies. We also know each other's families, and so yeah, I wouldn't call it a business board of advisors, but it's certainly a group of respected peers that if I need to call on them for something, I can do so.
Now, you're one of the few that we've had on that has exited a business, but you've exited several businesses. So do you have any advice for our audience, for anyone considering exiting for the first time, or in a year or so, they might start thinking about it?
Yeah. First, understand that just, at least here in the US, just under 90% of the businesses that are offered for sale never get an offer.
Right. Mm.
And part of that is because the business isn't properly positioned to be sold. Most of us as business owners look in the rearview mirror. We look with justifiable pride on all the things we've accomplished over the years, the people we've developed, the products and services we've created, how we've grown our company. But the reality is somebody who's looking to acquire your business doesn't really care.
No.
What they're looking for is what's the future cash flow stream.
Yeah.
And they don't necessarily want to buy a job like you have.
Mm-hmm.
They're making an investment. And I have these conversations regularly. We haven't talked about it, but the transitions side of our company, we coach people on how to position their business for sale. Yep. So, we have, 8 different value tools that we use. So, one of the things that business owners don't realize is that if they're involved in making all of the decisions, or everything that's happening in the company goes across their desk, that's not a good thing.
No.
Somebody that's looking to acquire you doesn't want that job. They want to know that there's a team of people who can effectively carry on the business when you're gone. Recurring revenue. If there's a way that you can establish some sort of recurring revenue, now that's different than repeat business. A lot of us have customers that come back multiple times, but recurring revenue is where there's a contractual relationship that says these people are going to pay you every month or every quarter. Recurring revenue is great for an acquirer who's looking to evaluate your business because they know that money's there. Another tool that a business owner can use is really evaluate how dependent they are on any one customer, any one vendor, or any one employee.
Yep.
Particularly with the vendors and customers, if they account for more than 15% of your revenue or the products you buy, that's a problem.
Yep.
Now you're dependent on that vendor. If something happens with that relationship, if they go out of business, you're scrambling, and that affects the profitability of your company. So those are just some things that don't normally occur to a business owner, but they're really important when the time comes to sell. What you really want to avoid when you sell your business, if at all possible, is an earnout. Yep. Because most offers that come in, particularly for smaller companies, they're going to say, well, I'll give you a 3 or 4 to 1 revenue, 3 or 4 times your revenue. But, I'm going to hold 50% of that back for the first 18 months just to make sure the numbers stay consistent. Or they're going to say, great, I'll buy your company, but I want you to stay on and manage it for the next 2 years. And that guarantees the rest of your payout. Who wants that?
No, most people, their heart and soul is not going to be in it for the next few years. They just want to move on. No. So you need to be in the position of power in those negotiations, so you don't have to, one, agree to an earnout, or 2, to have to stick around. That's
exactly right. But what a lot of people go into who haven't experienced it, they go into the sale of their business and think it's like selling a piece of real estate.
Yep.
You walk away from the title table with a check. Yep. It's not always the case.
Some great tips there, Gordon. Thank you on exiting. One of our final 5 questions. What do you think is the hardest thing in growing a small business?
Balancing a lot of the decisions and the areas where you're supposed to have expertise, but you may not. And coming to the realization that it probably makes sense to outsource some things.
Favorite business book which has helped you the most?
Gosh, where to start? I tell you, one that had a big impact on me this last year was The Road Less Stupid by Keith Cunningham.
I haven't heard that one.
Great book. This is a guy who built a huge company, made a mistake, lost everything, and had to start over, and has now built it back. So what he talks about business owners who make bad decisions, they pay the stupid tax.
Yep.
But one of the biggest takeaways from the book, and I think it would be relevant for the entire audience listening, is he says, as business owners, we need to just get away from our business a couple times a week for 90 minutes or 2 hours, sit in a chair. He uses a legal pad. I don't care whether you use your tablet or whatever, but just think. No interruptions, none of your team around, get off site if you can, and just think about your business, think about the impact it's having on your life, think about what you want. And as you start through this process, and I've experienced it myself since I've been doing this, as you start through that process, your mind really starts to generate a lot of great ideas, not all of which you can implement, but the creative juices really start flowing when you just get away. Another really valuable book that has impacted me for the last 10 years, which tells you how old it is, The 12-Month Year. Brian Moran and a couple of other guys were the authors. But their consensus, and I experienced it myself, most of us start the year with really concrete goals. And then the tyranny of the everyday running our business comes into play. And suddenly September comes around and we think, well, crap, I haven't made any of my goals. And that's why there's always this flurry in the fourth quarter, because everybody's trying to meet their goals. Well, what they say in the 12-week year is identify 2 or 3 major goals, year-long goals, and focus on those for a quarter. Focus on them for 12 weeks. So what that means is every week is like a month. And every day of that week is like a week. So it really focuses you on making sure you accomplish something each day. The 13th week of the quarter, plan your next quarter, set your next 2 or 3 major goals. And what happens is you get to the end of the year and you've accomplished moonshot amounts of business instead of scrambling to try to cover your butt for the few things you wanted to get done. So those 2 books, I think, are really valuable.
No, I'm a big advocate of a quarterly focus. I love that Bill Gates quote. I think it goes along the lines of people underestimate what they can achieve in a lifetime, but overestimate what they can do in a year.
Yeah, exactly right.
And that I like that stupid tax. I use the dickhead tax when I'm working. If I am considering working with someone I know is going to be challenging, double the price, triple. You know, that's it, and they pay a dickhead tax.
I understand.
Any great podcasts or online learning tools you use for your own professional development?
I'm on at least one online webinar a week on something related to my business or an area of interest. They aren't all business related, but we need to develop ourselves outside of the day-to-day grind. But there's so many of those resources that are available online now. Online courses have become a big thing, and you can do those digitally in your leisure time. So I do a lot of that online now.
Right. One tool you'd recommend to help grow a small business?
You want to build a client list, a customer list. You want to stay in touch with those people that you've done business with. Even if you're a retail store, you want to try to capture that information so you can stay in touch. So, a good tool would be an autoresponder so that you can send out drip email campaigns, and some kind of CRM, client relationship manager. Those tools are ubiquitous now. There's all kinds of competition. There's some free tools that are excellent. You can pay a small amount of money and get very sophisticated tools, more sophisticated than you need for most businesses. But I think having those 2 things and then making sure you have a discipline in place in your company where somebody's actually putting the data in and properly managing it. But we all know the old adage that it's much easier to do business with a repeat customer than to go get a new customer. Well, the way you maintain those relationships, the way you get referrals is by constantly dripping content on them. And valuable content, not please send us referrals, but something that's of value to them. I mean, we actually use an automated greeting card program where greeting cards are sent through the mail. And we set this up on a year-long basis. So every month for 3 months, they just get something that's of interest, an interesting fact from history or something like that. The 4th card each month, hey, our business grows by referrals. Can you help us? Here's the type of people that we're looking for this month. And then we start the cycle over again. So every month they get a greeting card. And the way we do greeting, the reason we do greeting cards, Troy, is they get opened. You got a 12 or 15% deliverability rate on email. 50% of your business mail gets opened. But 94% of greeting cards get opened, according to the Direct Mail Association.
Wow. Okay, great.
So greeting, somebody sent me a greeting card. Let's see who it's from.
That's a good trick. Yeah, good hack. Well, out of interest, what CRM and drip system do you use now?
We use Pipedrive
Mm-hmm.
to manage our system, and we've used a couple of different autoresponders. I'm using one now called Mailshake.
Right.
The reason I've been testing it is they have a real high deliverability rate on cold email.
Mm-hmm.
And in my business, cold email to specific niches with offers with a foot in the door strategy is still an effective way to grow the business.
Yep.
So we're testing that, but I think I've used all of them over the years.
Yeah.
But delivery of email has gotten much more complex.
Yeah.
You've got to season email addresses. You've got to be careful how you structure your emails. It's just gotten to be a science in and of itself.
It has. Finally, my favorite question. What would you tell yourself on day one of starting out back in, was it 1976?
Yes, back in the 70s. Make sure that every day you focus on one specific objective and get it done.
Yep.
Don't let the open door distract you from getting anything done. I read an interesting survey a couple of years ago that Fortune 100 executives say that they spend 20% of their year doing actual valuable work for the company, and the rest of their year is just spent dealing with crap. And that happens on a small business as well. But if you just sit down on Sunday evening and what do you want to accomplish for the week?
Yep.
And make sure that each day you accomplish one of those things. And gosh, you look up Friday night and you can give yourself that reward margarita because by golly, you've gotten some shit done during the week.
That's it. There's two great stories here. Ivy Lee, who's the person credited with creating PR or public relations, I think it was in the early 20th century, around the 1920s, went into Rockefeller's office here, the big railroad oil magnate, did a lot of vertical integration. Obviously, clearly a very smart person. I think the richest person in the world around that time. And he said he's got the secret to guaranteed success. And Rockefeller said, okay, well, how much is it going to cost me? He said, well, you tell me what it's worth once you've tried it out. And so it's very simple, but exactly what you just said. The night before, the morning before you get into your day, just write the top 3 or 5 things that you need to substantially complete or push forward that day. And just focus on that list, work from number 1, then number 2. Don't move from number 1 until you've done all you can, etc. So Rockefeller rolled that out with all his managers, and a few years later sent Lee a check for, I think it was 20,000 US, which back then was now worth millions of equivalent dollars today, millions and millions. That was the value of it. And I think Drucker talks about what you just said, that 20%, working on the most valuable 20% of things. I think in Effective Executive, Drucker wrote about this. He worked with Alpha P. Sloan from General Motors in the 1940s, I think it was, and some of those other Fortune 500 companies back then. And then one of the first things he did was ask the CEO, what are your main priorities? And they'd reel off 50 things. And he'd say, no. What are your priorities? And then you get down to 40, then to 30. Eventually you get down to 5 or so. And he would say, right, I'm going to come back in 3 months. As I walk out the door, I'm going to ask your assistant to track your time, just roughly. And he'd come back 3 months later. Sorry, before he left, he said, what percentage of your time do you think you're spending on those 5 priorities? And all of them would say, easily 80%. That's what I'm doing. And that's when he would say, as I'm going to ask your assistant to track your time. He'd come back 3 months later. And of course, Pareto was reversed. It was spending 20% on the things they just said and intellectually agreed with themselves are the 5 things they should be doing with 80% of their time, but they're only spending 20% on it.
Yeah. Drucker was brilliant. I had the opportunity to hear him speak at Arizona State University back in the 70s. Horrible speaker.
Yeah.
But brilliant man, and his books are excellent.
They are.
But not a great speaker from the stage.
No. Well, thank you, Gordon. I think the audience will get a shit ton of value out of what you've shared with us. Tremendous journey over the decades. Really interesting and exciting businesses. And congratulations to you and the team and your other business partners on your success to date.
Thank you so much. It's been great to have a conversation with you, Troy. I've enjoyed it.
That's it. Thanks for listening. Please leave a review in iTunes or whatever platform you listen to us on. It means more small business owners will find our cast and help people with their business growth journey.